I'm Lance Wellnow, filling in for Gene Bailey, and this is FlashPoint. As many of you have noticed, something has changed. All of this information is breaking out, and the credibility of the administration that's in Washington is dissolving by the minute. So with that introduction, I'd like to bring my favorite team to the forefront to help me analyze these current events and see if they concur that this is indeed a moment when God is doing something and we're perhaps seeing the beginning of the awakening and the reset that we have been praying for this long time. Hank Kunneman, thank you for joining us, my friend, as I'm in a different seat than I usually am. Murillo, the incendiary and delightful evangelist with the Charles Finney anointing, and Gene Bailey, of all things. Actually, there he is. Gene, I'm glad that you're checking up on us, and I'm going to start this program off enjoying the moment that I get to turn to Gene Bailey first and say, Gene, what are your thoughts about all these things? What do you think, Gene? What's going on?
Well, Lance, I'm so glad you're there and I'm here. Although, I mean, I've had phone calls after phone calls about, you don't know what's going on here in the studio. Lance is causing all kinds of trouble. No, I'm kidding. It's been great. Listen, I want to tell you something. In all seriousness, what we've experienced, and I'm not going to tell you exactly where I'm at, but I'm somewhere in the South Pacific. But let me tell you, never in my life have I seen so many people outside with a mask on. With a mask. Can you believe it? The people are crazy. People getting upset with me because I'm not wearing my mask on outside. I'm sure there are probably some people in the ocean right now with a mask on. That's how ridiculous this thing is. However, may I say, Lance, when I talk to some of the vendors and I talk to some of the people who work here, they're irate. They're irate at their government. They've shut down so much of this island. The beautiful things that they could do. Tourism is at an all-time low. And listen, it's affecting the economy. It's affecting good people. They're at home wanting to do their job, wanting to work and get paid, and they can't do it because they got to wear a mask outside, or they can, don't come in here because you might have COVID. I'm just telling you, it's frustrating to say the least, but it's really eye-opening for the rest of us that live in great places like Texas, where we can move about fairly easily.
Yes, and the only problem is we don't have coastlines like that in Texas, Gene, and that's why you're not here now. We understand life has its choices, but I'm so glad to see you, and I hope that you're getting some R&R time because we're going to need you for this next season, brother. Speaking of next season, Prophet Hank Kunneman, are we in a new season? What do you say, sir?
Yes, first of all, it's great to see Pastor Gene Bailey, and I pray that's not a green screen, Pastor Gene. So here's what you need to do. Climb the coconut tree or palm tree to your right, or dive off that cliff. Let me see it take a swim. Is it real, Gene? Is it real? But I want you to know something real fast.
It's real.
It's real. I want to do this real quick. I drew you a picture, Pastor Gene. This is the back of Smiley's head, and I just wanted to celebrate you, let you know that we're smiling. But yes, we are in a new season. In fact, God is declaring in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that, under heaven there is a season and a time and a purpose for all things. And I'm telling you right now, Lance, and those of you that are watching, the season of God has shifted in this nation and in the earth. His purposes are going to begin to intensify. And I sense very strong over the next 4 months that rounds out this year, there is going to be some very, very embarrassing moments for the commander-in-chief and what that administration has done to this nation. And God said there's great things that are getting ready to happen. You're going to see great exposures continue, great squirming. You're going to see great unravelings. But then, like what Lance, you said at the beginning of the broadcast, there is a great reset that God is looking, and He's wanting us to get into agreement because things are going to begin to shift. And it's not that it's going to be necessarily easy right away, but things are going to begin to shift towards amazing victory for those of us that have been standing and believing God.
I want to get to Mario in a second, but Gene, I wanted to follow up on something. Someone told me about an airport experience. Can you fill us in on what happened?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, Lance. And listen, we left Dallas Fort Worth. You've got to want to leave and go to some of these places in the South Pacific. It was a nightmare. You got to get a test. You got to get a certain kind of test. Don't get it too quick. It's got to be 72 hours before. And then you got this. Then you got to do that. And fill out a questionnaire. Oh, we need to take your temperature. By the time we got to the gate, it was exhausting. I'm really frustrated. However, the last step, Lance, and this really was aggravating, was they very much shamed the unvaccinated. What do you mean? You don't have a vaccine? Oh, well, we're not sure. It's not the right form. It was the right form. And, woe to you, American Airlines. I understand now where our friend David Harris Jr. came from. Lance, it was unbelievable just the way they were treating passengers who were not vaccinated to get on the plane to go to Hawaii. All right, so I get here and I said, all right, well, what have I got to do to get back? So I check the forms and it says, to Texas? Oh, you don't need to do anything. Just get on the plane. So it was an incredible time. I'm telling you, this thing is real. It's affecting air travel. The airplane going was a lot of empty seats. The plane going back's got a lot of empty seats. This is going to affect tourism. It's going to affect the economy. No matter what state you live in, it's going to affect it.
And I do not understand how the government can allow the economy to crash on its watch, because this is just going to be a disaster for the Democrats if they don't stop shooting themselves in the foot. I was just looking at I think it was a Gateway Pundit picture the other day with Biden shooting himself right in the foot, which we're going to talk about. It's as though God himself is allowing folly to be put on display. And Mario, you probably have been more of a sampler of what's going on in the culture than many of us, because when you're in the harvest field, when you're out there, you've got a real focus group, right? So people pay to hear what other people's opinions are of a product. What are they saying in America? What's really being said? Not in the news media and on blog spheres, but what are the American people telling you?
The American people are about to rise up in mass. California, who would have thought that Cuomo would be gone and Gavin Newsom would be on the ropes within a few weeks of each other? And now these are the two most powerful leftist governors in the entire republic. And what it means is that the groundswell, the grassroots, the feeling that our nation has been stolen. The biggest problem that Gavin Newsom faces in California is all of the small businesses that he destroyed. And there are thousands of them, tens of thousands of them that were destroyed. People that lost their livelihood. And for a while, the pandemic, like the fear that you're seeing in Hawaii, this coma of paranoia, it's worn thin in California. We now realize that Californians said, you deliberately went out of your way to destroy my business. The number one employer in California is small business. But then there's this other. Multiple lawsuits that were lost by the state of California for discrimination against churches. We saw Arthur win his, Jim Franklin in Fresno. We saw Cheon win his. So now hundreds and millions of dollars are having to be paid to churches for their legal fees because it is evident that it was discrimination. So the transformation we're seeing is that the body of Christ has a fresh new ally. It's the Californian who's lost his business. It's the family member. It's the angry mom who's down at the teachers' meeting telling them that it is insane what they want to do. But the California legislature lives in an echo chamber. The number one bill they're trying to put forth right now is for feminine hygiene products in the men's restrooms in public schools for transgender females who think they're male not to feel alienated. Now we have Afghanistan, we have destroyed businesses, but up there in Sacramento, the oxygen doesn't reach the brain. And it's evident that this is going to sweep across the country. And we're watching it in our meetings, where now we can get our permits, get our open air, get our ability to meet in rallies and preach virtually wherever we want, because public officials are sick to death of the way the left has handled our country.
Well, you know, it makes me think about Pharaoh and what was happening in his under his rule, as they had frogs and lice, and it seemed to be one problem after another, but there was no way that they could blame the Jews for it. It was almost as though their own recalcitrance was creating those consequences. Gene, I don't know how long we're going to be able to keep you here. I feel almost guilty with that setting over there. I mean, we're working here, but you look like you should be enjoying yourself. Do you have any final thoughts and wisdom you can give us?
Well, I listened to your monologue tonight, Lance, which is very good. And I'm thinking here, ladies and gentlemen, we're in for a ride. Don't lose hope. I like what Pastor Hank said and Mario said. We are in for a ride as long as you've got your eyes of faith tuned into what God's really doing and not on what man is doing out here in the government. Listen, we're going to do it. The church is rising up, and we're going to see new things change and new things happen in our government. This is it, folks. This is what we've been waiting for. And all we need to do is complete the mission.
No, I believe you're absolutely right, Gene. And we're thankful for FlashPoint. This has been really a tremendous resource, even for us, because